there, beer hunters. Welcome to another episode of the Beer Huntress. I hope you're all exceptionally well. If you don't already know me, my name's Jo. I'm the manageress of a real ale and craft beer bar in Wigan in Greater Manchester called Wigan Central, and we are all about the beer. That's exactly why I'm here for you today. I'm here to review a beer for you. I don't know what I'm going to be drinking yet. That's why we turned to the Wheel of Styles, which is hashtag made by John. And this is going to pick what style we're going to be drinking. I'm going to pick a beer from there, talk a bit about the style history, a bit about the brewery history, and then we're going to review the tasting notes. So, shall we decide what we're having for today? I've been excited for this one, a soupy boy. So we're going to dank it up and go really hazy and murky. Wonderful. I'm really excited that we picked soupy boys for today. This style is properly growing on me in the last few years, and I'm loving what's coming out from NEIPAs and from very hazy and murky and dank beers. So I've been excited to try this one out and do a proper review for you. Before the NEIPA came along, the trend was to more heavily aggressive, bitter IPAs, and the IBU arms race began in the mid-2000s, where breweries were just competing to try and get absolute palate wreckers out there, 100 IBUs and above. And they were utilising West Coast hops, which are quite piney, resinous, and a very grapefruit pithy kind of flavour to them. Not something I'm a particularly big fan of in my IPAs, and so for a long time, along with quite a few other consumers, I didn't think I actually liked pale ales or IPAs in any level, because I just assumed that they were going to be really bitter and really sharp on the taste buds. But then this happened. Some smaller outfits in the east coast of the US actually started producing something completely different, and they were using their own strains of hops and yeast in order to be able to create murky and very juicy beers. As a publican, you'll be surprised how many years I've had to defend this particular style, and even being a little bit nervous of it myself the first time I got it into the pub. I didn't think anybody would want to drink anything that looked and smelt a bit like orange juice and still call it a beer, but I have been massively proven wrong, and I'm a huge fan of these beers these days, along with a lot of my customers being. The Alchemist's Heady Topper is the beer that launched 1,000 NEIPAs. It was produced in Vermont, which is in the US, obviously on the East Coast. It was a gentleman called John Kimmich and his partner Greg Noonan, and they owned the Vermont Pub and Brewery, and they started producing these hazy beers in the mid-1990s. This was a time when beers were still expected to look brilliantly clean and bright, and so it was quite an experiment for them to push something like this out. Unfortunately, Noonan passed away, and Kimmich expanded on the original ideas that they had, opening his own brew pub in 2003 called The Alchemist. The style at the time was so unheard of but amazingly popular, and it was only available on draft within the brew pub. But in 2011 he began canning, and the style took on a world of its own, getting out to a much larger market. One of the regulars at the Alchemist pub was a guy called Sean Hill, and in 2010 he opened the Hill Farmstead Brewery, which is in Greensboro Bend in Vermont. And a lot of savvy drinkers recognised that there was a familiarity between the type of style that these two breweries were bringing out, and this was because they shared a strain of yeast that was very specific to the area and was referred to as the Conan yeast. Now, the hops that are now synonymous with NEIPAs are Citra, Mosaic and Galaxy, and they were just debuting around about the same time that Hill Farmstead started out. But hops aren't the only part of the equation when it comes to the NEIPA. It's the interplay between the hops and the specific strain of yeast that are being used. The yeast strain that was being used to produce NEIPAs was very different from the more traditional Chico yeast, which is the one that a majority of US brewers used to reach for. It had a lot heavier esters on it, which meant people actually thought that it gave it a much fruitier flavour and a lot better fruit on the aroma as well. It tends to leave a much thicker, fuller and sweeter mouthfeel for you as well. This new look for the IPA has been around long enough now for us to develop our own vocabulary for it. So we'll call them hazy IPAs or Merc bombs or soupy boys or New England IPAs, which is the proper term for them. So that's where the neat term NEIPA comes from, New England IPA. But within this style, subgenres have actually appeared as well. And now we've got milkshake IPAs coming out, which contain lactose. We have IPAs with the addition of oats and wheats to them, which give them a thicker and fuller body. And we also have IPAs that have been aggressively hopped, even though it's quite fruity and juicy hops, and that's how they end up with their haziness because of the level of dry hopping. So nowadays we use the term New England IPA, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to use the New England yeast in there, because we can use alternative methods in order to be able to create that really hazy and murky appearance. Now onto this particular brewer. This is Unbarred, and this is a brewery that's based in Brighton. They were a commercial home-based brewery at first, and the first beers came out in 2015. In 2019, they took over the former site of the Holler Brewery. This meant they were able to expand quite considerably, and in 2020, the head brewer and founder, Jordan, decided that he wanted to create a range of beers that expressed how different a beer could be just by taking the base beer and then adding different hops into it in each cycle that they produce it. I've seen this many times with a lot of breweries. One of the first ones I ever saw was Hand Drawn Monkey, who were based in Huddersfield, and they did their Monkey Loves hops, and every time they had a different number on it. It took me years before I realised that they were changing the hops in every time. But Jordan's expertise and love for the New England style meant that a new series was born for Unbarred. With the NEIPA, they were able to push the boundaries to create a really sweet, smooth body, but with a full hop expression depending upon which hops they wanted to use at the time. In 2021, they're now continuing to use their 7% base beer and then changing the hops each month for a different release. The first of the year is this one, which is the 0121, and this has Amarillo, Eldorado and Azaka in it, which is going to push really soft peach flavours, apricot, tangerines and pineapple coming through. So tons of tropical flavours coming through on this, as well as that very low perceived bitterness that we're going to get from the New England style. They've added oats and wheat into this, so that's going to soften it on the mouthfeel and on the palate as well. So shall we take a look at the can artwork on this? So they've decided to work with several local and professional photographers for their artwork for this series. And what they're trying to do is showcase some of the culture from their hometown in monochrome pictures. And they're going to be releasing a blog each month that details a little bit more about the photographer. This particular photographer is Jerry Webb, and the image is of Brighton Beach, or at least I'm assuming it is. You can, it's a very nice photograph actually. Just the waves crashing up on the side. And then across the back, we've got just a little bit of info about the hops in there, nothing really massively important. It's unusual for a brewery to go for such a monochrome image for a NEIPA. They're usually much brighter. Generally the darker beers are the ones that end up with the really kind of monochrome dark browns and greys and etc. So let's crack it open. I love that dank orange juice look to NEIPAs. They're phenomenal. So we've got this gorgeous, opaque, very murky soupy boy. This lovely white, clean head on, which is such a signature of the IPA. Very bright, very vibrant. I think this one's going to be very good. So, let's have a smell. It smells very light. I can smell that orange and that really fresh kind of mango flavour coming through. It does smell quite juicy. I usually get a little bit more of the esters coming off from the yeast kind of profile, but not so much on this one. It does smell nice though. I'm going in. It's very thick. That is very full. It's a gorgeous mouth body to it. I don't know what mouth body is, by the way. It's like somewhere between body and mouthfeel, but I know what I meant. That is very, very full. Super creamy. The hops in there. Because I know Amarillo can be a little bit piney, I think I'm getting a little bit of an influence from that, because you can get that kind of orange pine to it. And I'm getting the orange just up at the back up here. It is quite herbal, which is a bit shocking, but at the front, that's where the juice is coming in. Really, really juice forward. Mangoes, pineapples, peaches, apricots, all that kind of fruit going on there. Really stunningly impacted. I'm just overwhelmed with the mouthfeel. And that's what I love about NEIPAs, is moving so far away from that really, really intense bitterness that you used to get when you used to have an IPA. It's this creamy, smooth, almost smoothie kind of beer. And I like something that's got a lot of depth to it and a lot of weight to it, and this has got that. It's terribly complex. At the front is all that tropical flavour, but the back seems to be showcasing all that Amarillo really, really highly. Orange, pithy, bitter, a little bit of that pine going on. You know, it's almost like they've kind of decided to separate them out and put that at the back. Azaka can be really juicy and really fruit forward, so that's obviously up at the front. El Dorado can be really juicy, really fruit forward. The Amarillo just adds a touch of bitter bite to it, just an extra addition of layering and an extra addition of flavour. But the body, there's a slight effervescence to it, only very delicate. It's just allowing those hops to just kind of hit my taste buds a little bit stronger. Otherwise it'd be a bit too creamy, a bit too full, and they'd be masked. Glad they've not gone for anything like lactose in this, because those hops would have completely died with that. They've kept it quite fresh. But I'm just loving what's going on with the separation of the two flavours. Tropical up front, piney and bitter at the back. It's working very, very well. And the lacing on the glass, beautiful condition. Just would like a touch more on the nose. I was going to give it one criticism, and that's really picking. Just a touch. I like a little bit more of it. But yeah, proper NEIPA. Really juice forward, really creamy, lovely mouthfeel, and just that extra little bit on the back that's just giving it something a little bit different. I'm very impressed with that. And I've not had that much pale from Unbarred. I've had quite a few of their darks, but not very much pale from them, so I think I'll be trying a few more. Well guys, if you've had this, let me know in the comments what you thought of it. I think this is a very good example of the style, and they've certainly not let me down. I'll have to chase out the other numbers from the rest of the month, so that could be quite good fun. And I hope you've enjoyed watching this episode as much as I've enjoyed drinking this beer. I shall see you next time on the Beer Huntress. Cheers! If you enjoyed this video guys, then please like, subscribe and share it with your friends. Hit that notifications button to get alerts when our new video is out. We're also on Facebook, Twitter and on Instagram, so check out the links in the description and follow us on there as well. If there's anything you'd like to see us review, please pop it in the comments and we'll pop it in the pump for later. Keep waj banking, and I shall see you all next time for another episode of The Beer Huntress.